The morning I found a gate cut into my own backyard fence, I was holding coffee and wearing slippers with tiny tacos on them. So you can imagine how powerful I looked when I saw two workers drilling into my fence while a woman from the neighborhood board stood there, pointing like she owned the place. Her name was Brenda Sterling, and every subdivision in America has a Brenda. She was the kind of woman who set community standards with the same tone other people use for federal law. She ran the Oak Ridge Estates Community Board, wore oversized sunglasses even when it was cloudy, and carried a clipboard like it was a badge. I lived in a quiet neighborhood outside Savannah, Georgia, the kind with trimmed lawns, brick mailboxes, and people who pretend not to watch each other through blinds. I bought that house because I wanted peace. A small backyard, a grill, some tomatoes, and my dog, Buster. A 90-pound rescue mix with a thunderous bark and a soft little heart. That morning, Buster was losing his mind behind the sliding door, and honestly, I could not blame him. Because right there, where my side fence met the walking path, Brenda's crew had cut a clean rectangle out of my fence and installed a black iron gate into my yard. At first, I just stood there, waiting for the world to correct itself. Maybe I was dreaming, but then the gate swung open. Brenda stepped through with her little white dog, and she smiled at me like she'd brought muffins. "Morning, Tyler," she said. "Isn't this so much better?" I stared at her. "Better for who?" "For everyone," she said, waving a folder. "The path around the pond is inconvenient, and your yard creates the most natural connection point." The council approved a community access improvement. I looked past her at the fresh sawdust on my grass, the broken boards, the hinge bolts sunk into my fence post. "Brenda, you cut a gate into my private fence." She gave me this tiny laugh, the kind people use when they want you to feel stupid for understanding reality. "It is not private in the way you're implying. There are easement provisions." I took the papers from her hand. The highlighted clause was about emergency utility access, not Brenda shaving 5 minutes off her morning walk. "This says written notice and homeowner consent are required," I said. Her smile tightened. "You were not at the meeting. I was in Charlotte for work." "Well, that is unfortunate," she said. But the motion passed. Then her dog squatted beside my rosemary bush. Something in me went quiet. Not calm. Quiet. The kind of quiet you feel right before you realize somebody has crossed a line they cannot uncross. I wanted to yell. I wanted to rip that gate off the hinges right there. Instead, I took out my phone and started recording. "Please state again that the council approved cutting into my fence without my written consent." Brenda's face changed. "Don't be dramatic." "I am not being dramatic. I am documenting." She walked out through the gate, pretending I was the unreasonable one. And as that metal latch clicked behind her, I felt a humiliation I had not felt. In years, Brenda had decided I was harmless. Quiet guy, works from home, keeps to himself. The sort of person who would grumble, maybe send an email, then give up. She picked the wrong yard. That afternoon, I called my cousin Marcus, a property attorney in Richmond. I sent him photos, video, the bylaws, and a picture of Buster staring at the gate like it had insulted his ancestors. Marcus called back in 6 minutes. "Tyler," he said, laughing in disbelief. "This is wildly not okay. Can I tear it out?" "Do not touch it yet. Film everything. Save every email. Let them keep using it if they are dumb enough. Then we make it expensive." So I waited. That was the hardest part. The next morning, Brenda came through with 2 council ladies, walked across my grass, and stepped into the flower bed my mother had helped me plant. "See," she said, "this is what community flow looks like." I stood on the porch and said, "This is what trespassing looks like." She smiled without looking back. "You really need to be more neighborly." That word hit me wrong. As if being neighborly meant letting someone take what was yours and thank them for the privilege. That night, Marcus drove down with a bottle of bourbon and a stack of property maps. He explained the legal side: trespass, property damage, unauthorized, alteration, misuse of HOA authority. Then he pointed at the map. Your setback line gives you room to build a privacy barrier here, he said. 8 feet max, without special approval, as long as it stays on your side. I looked at him. He looked at me. And slowly, both of us smiled. Fencing? I asked. He shook his head. No, something stronger. By midnight, I had a plan. Not revenge. Not exactly. A boundary. A real one? A legal one. A message made out of stone. I found a masonry crew that did overnight commercial work. Fast, quiet, expensive. I told the foreman, Diego, that I needed an 8-foot garden wall built along the inside line of my fence, right behind the gate. He asked why the rush. I said, a woman installed a shortcut through my yard. He paused. Then he said, we start at 10. At 9:55 the next night, 2 trucks rolled into my driveway with their lights low. Diego and his crew mixed mortar and started stacking charcoal gray blocks with a limestone cap. I did not remove Brenda's gate, simply built a wall directly behind it, fully on my property, perfectly to code. By 3:40 in the morning, the wall was done, 8 feet tall, clean lines. A small metal plaque at eye level read, private property, no access. When the sun came up, I made coffee and waited. Brenda arrived at 7:18. She came down the walking path in her blue visor, holding her dog leash and humming like a woman who had never met consequences. She reached the gate, flipped the latch, pushed it open, and stepped directly into a wall, not bumped into it. She caught herself just in time, both hands flying up, her sunglasses sliding down her nose. For a full 5 seconds, she did not move. Then she screamed my name. I walked out with my coffee. Morning. Brenda, what is this? A wall. You blocked community access? No, I said. I blocked access to my backyard. This is retaliation. This is masonry. Her face turned red. You cannot build this. I handed her a laminated copy of the county code and my property survey. 8 feet, on my side. No permit required. Marcus checked everything. She slapped the papers against the wall. You will hear from the council. I already did, I said. That's why the wall is here. For once, Brenda had no script. Her little dog barked at the wall like that would help. Then she spun around and marched away, dragging him behind her. I thought that would be the end of it. I was adorable back then. By noon, I had 3 violation emails. Unauthorized structure, disrupting visual harmony. And my personal favorite, intimidating community members with hostile architecture. I printed that one and put it on the refrigerator. Marcus sent a formal cease and desist the next day. Attached were photos, recordings, property maps, and video of Brenda using the gate after I had objected. He also requested receipts showing whether HOA funds had been used to alter my fence. That last part made people nervous. At the next council meeting, I walked in with Marcus, a binder, and a thumb drive. Brenda sat at the front table, smiling like she had already won. The room smelled like coffee, carpet cleaner, and people avoiding eye contact. She started with a speech about community values. She said I was creating division. She said my wall symbolized selfishness. She said Oak Ridge Estates had always been built on openness. I stood up. Brenda, I said, did you have written permission to cut into my fence? She blinked. The council approved it. Did you have written permission for me? Silence. I plugged in the thumb drive. On the screen, there she was, walking through my yard with 3 women behind her. Her own voice filled the room. It's fine. He works from home, but he won't make a scene. The room shifted. That sentence showed everyone exactly what she thought of me. Not a neighbor, not a homeowner. It's an obstacle too weak to matter. Then Marcus laid out the facts in that calm attorney voice that makes. Guilty people start drinking water, unauthorized alteration, repeated trespass, retaliatory citations, failure. And then my neighbor, Mrs. Higgins, stood up. "No," she said. "It is not." She was 72, barely 5 feet tall, and the whole room went quiet. She fined me $200 because my grandson's chalk drawing was visible from the sidewalk, Mrs. Higgins said. He drew a turtle. A man in the back stood. She made me repaint my porch because the green was too cheerful. Another woman said she threatened me over wind chimes after my husband died. Said the sound was emotionally disruptive. And just like that, the room broke open. Story after story came pouring out. Fines, threats, inspections, petty letters. Brenda had been treating the neighborhood like her personal courtroom, and people had been too embarrassed or too tired to speak. But now they had a wall to point at. A symbol. Proof that somebody had finally said no and survived. Brenda sat frozen, her hands gripping the table. By the end of the night, the council voted to suspend her authority, pending review. Then they passed a new rule requiring a full community vote for any construction affecting private property. The vote was nearly unanimous. Brenda left before the meeting ended. For the first time since I moved into Oak Ridge Estates, people stayed afterward and talked like neighbors. Real neighbors, not polite hostages. A few weeks later, Brenda put her house up for sale. She never apologized. People like Brenda rarely do. She left a note in my mailbox that said, "I hope you find the peace you clearly require." I kept it because it was the closest thing to poetry she ever wrote. Now the wall is covered in jasmine vines. Buster likes to sleep in the shade. Sometimes people walking. The paths stop and whisper, and every now and then I hear somebody say, "That's the wall from the HOA fight." I never correct them, because yes, it was a wall, but it was also a line. And some people only understand lines when they are tall enough to block the shortcut they thought they deserved. So was I petty. Maybe. Did I spend more money than a normal person would have? Absolutely. But I learned something from all of this. Peace is not always soft. Sometimes peace looks like a locked door, a saved recording, a lawyer cousin, and 8 feet of charcoal gray stone standing exactly where your patience ran out. Now I want to know what you think. Was I wrong for building the wall overnight? Or did Brenda get exactly what she earned? Have you ever seen someone use an HOA, a job title, a uniform, or a little bit of authority to push people around until somebody finally pushed back? Tell me in the comments, because somewhere in some quiet neighborhood, another Brenda is holding a clipboard, and another quiet homeowner is deciding whether to stay silent or start stacking bricks. So subscribe to Ho Drama Neighbor for more.